I'm riding torrent up a slope of graves, dotted with snails making their homes in giant skulls, surrounded by the golden plains of Altus Plateau, and I think to myself, I'll never play this game again. I'm in my apartment, alone as my partner had to work. I'm enjoying a soda, a Coke Zero, full on lunch and listening to Action Button's video on Tokimeki Memorial. And he's talking about high school, and I'm thinking to myself, I'll never play this game again. It's been amazing. The first game in ages that I've sunk so much time into. But still, and I don't even know why, but I'll never play it again. I open the map and plot my next course, placing down markers in the edges and grooves of the sprawling illustrated map, finding the spots that feel so designed. I don't know what will be there. It's a multiple choice question. Giant crab, dungeon, or giant bear. But I know that it's the only time I'll see it. I won't return here. I've come so far, combed slowly through each crack and crevice of Liurnia, Caelid, and Limgrave, and I am unlikely to retread this ground. Each step is the last. The map falls into blackness behind me. I'm listening to Action Button, and he's talking about high school and nostalgia and wanting to relive, and I'm just thinking about Limgrave. It's been 100 hours of game, stretching to feel like a lifetime of play. The last single-player game to lock me in this solitude was an early pandemic depression playthrough of Persona 5. I was a different person then, and a different person back when I first stepped foot into Limgrave. Back when I walked left and stayed walking for hours before finding the horse creature I ride now. I cleared the beach, the icy footprints, the troll, the cave, found the Church of Dragon Communion, and felt very proud of myself. So many little stories that are lost to memory, fudging and blending like strokes of dried paint, congealing into a mass that slides into my brain alongside memories from that Persona playthrough. Despite how long ago that playthrough was, and maybe even because the pandemic has flattened time into before and during, both the beginnings of Limgrave and Persona 5 might as well have been happening at the same time. And as Action Button talks about reliving high school, I too begin to think of awkward dates and being cringe. And it feels so true, though I cannot prove it. I do not have an X-ray machine or any other sort of brain scan imaging hardware, but those memories of Limgrave are living in the same part of my brain as those memories of high school. The distance from Limgrave to this spot on the Altus Plateau was so great that I became nostalgic for it. The kind of nostalgia that you feel in your nose. The memory of the first catacomb cat gargoyle thing is stuck right next to the smell of chlorine from the city pool back in southern Illinois. It was the middle of summer, and I fell backwards off the diving board. I stared up at the sun through the waves of water, unsure if I was awake or dreaming. I'll never play this game again, I think. I can't. And the next 20 hours I will explore probably the most well-designed section of any FromSoft game in the Liendel capital. But right now, in this moment, I know I can never play this game again. And it's not necessarily a condemnation, nor is it a compliment. I just feel it in my chest as a natural occurrence. The same sensation that comes after you start calling your new place home, replacing whatever place came before it. There's no loss, and there's nothing to gain, just something unquantifiable, changing and becoming known. There are pieces of art that can never be experienced the same after a first viewing. I'm Your Father, I See Dead People, Play Outer Wilds, things that get recontextualized and change based on experiencing them. If you know Brad Pitt isn't real, then you gotta watch again and see all the little tiny things you didn't notice. But I traveled all of Limgrave. I cleared the Weeping Peninsula, even the little caves full of nothings. And the game wasn't recontextualized in my head. It was become solid, defined and rigid, like the map itself, filled and colored and cleared, left blank now in my wake. To tread those grounds again would be equal to sitting in the sandbox with my childhood friend Paul. We haven't talked since I moved away from that southern Illinois town 20 years ago. I was 9, several different people ago on a cellular level. This is the first time a game has built emotional distance, as well as, or maybe even better than, it built physical distance. And there's a lot of physical distance. I'm riding now through a new place, and I have to be 3/4 of the way through the entirety of this experience. I'm seeing enemies and tombs and trolls, the same things I saw back then in the sandbox. These repeating patterns, repeating halls, gargoyle goblins trying to kill me, rune bears that I still refuse to face. This repetition of assets, of encounters, is growing this emotional canyon between where I started and where I am now. Whenever I move into a new place, it takes me time to build my routine. The path I'll take for walks, the place I'll go for groceries, and it's always those routines that I feel nostalgic for later on, after I've moved away and have to restart the process again. Right now, I miss walking around the park near my old place. There was a big curve of gravel and sand that wrapped around baseball diamonds and a long lakeshore drive. It went to a bridge that crossed the highway and led to the beach. I'm remembering the beach in Limgrave and the merchant underneath the canopy of rock. He'll be there if I go back, but I won't. Remembering him isn't the point. I've seen him in so many other places, tucked into alcoves in the underground, hidden behind the brush in the woods. These merchants, like the dungeons, are repeated over hours and hours. They, along with the dungeons and the monsters and the NPCs and the creatures and everything, are collectively working together to build a new routine laid over my hours of play, a simulacrum of living. I'm riding towards Leondell, and I know I'll never play this game ever again because I'm different. Or it's more appropriate to say I will be different. When it's done, I mean. I'm changing now, hanging in liminality, and something about this moment right now has made it all so visible. Completing the rest of the game is now a compulsion, the time remaining a sure thing, already checked and stamped and sent off to the factory, the clock draped over me and weighing me down until I decide to shed it. Elden Ring is now a curse that must be lifted. I will not complete it because I enjoy it, but because of what it's done to me. What it is doing to me. It has put me into this new routine, completely dominating my every waking moment. It has given me a new definition of home and then pulled me so far from it. It has wormed its way into my thoughts and my being, and here, not at the end of the game, not several months later from the experience, I am already growing nostalgic for what came before. These thoughts don't make me sad. I don't hold this against Elden Ring, but I don't feel much of anything about Elden Ring. I went through the excitement, the enchantment, the disbelief as the map unfolded at least 2 more times than I thought was possible. But the future is now predetermined, and that colors it gray. I feel as if I need to work to love in a way that came so naturally 50 hours ago. But the game doesn't hold the comfort of other such predetermined things. Despite the amount of times I need to walk to Target for groceries, I will inevitably return home with McDonald's as a little treat. Elden Ring, though, will not be there for me at the end of this journey. It will go. I don't know what to call this feeling beyond disenchantment. I think the best thing that sums it up is that right now, as I travel, I'm wanting to go back to Dark Souls 2. It's before I get into Landell Capital, and I have the sudden urge to boot up and go back to Drang Lake Castle, to walk those halls again, to experience one of my favorite dungeons in video gaming. Unlike Elden Ring, Drang Lake Castle is something that I look forward to going back to. Even to the point that it is invading my thoughts now, in the middle of what might be considered one of the best open-world games ever created. I've cleared my Altus Plateau map, and I'm heading to the capital now. Action Button is recounting a playthrough of a game I'll never be able to experience firsthand. There's still at least 20 hours to go before the end. I don't feel happy. I don't feel sad. All I feel is nostalgic.